issues in the news recently. Initially, the first incident at Michael Garron Hospital that we heard about, and then I actually received a personal phone call from a mutual friend who said somebody had found another noose at a construction site on Bay Street. And after we ran those stories, we were starting receiving calls to our newsroom from people saying, you know what, Dwight, that is not that uncommon. Things like this are happening. We heard stories of people saying that they saw things like Black Lives Don't Matter scrawled on construction site washroom stalls. So there's a reason for this conversation today. We want to give voice to Black construction leaders who have been supporting next-gen builders and in the mentoring programs. But given the recent racially motivated incidents on construction sites in Toronto, what is happening with the Black Lives Matter movement, what happened with George Floyd, and the systemic racism that is now coming to the fore, we have an opportunity here to discuss what is needed, I guess, and what can happen in construction to make things more inclusive and better for those people that are there building our cities, literally. We're also hoping by acknowledging and taking steps to rooting out and removing systemic racism in the construction industry, that the sector, of course, will be better positioned then to recruit and retain and develop the next generation of builders while continuing to build the world-class infrastructure that has been happening right here in our city. How are you dealing with the recent racially motivated incidents, specifically the nooses that were found on different construction sites? And maybe Richard or Jeff can take this one first.
I can go ahead. So the nooses, some of the nooses were found on our site. To be blunt, when I heard about the findings, I was initially very angry. I wasn't surprised because, you know, there's a misnomer that, you know, in Canada, we're not as polarizing when it comes to racism as, say, our neighbors in the South, and that is a myth. My experiences, if I talk to anyone offline, I will tell you some personal things that might shock you. I'm sure other Black people on this panel and listening in can attest to that. So the findings didn't surprise me, but finding a noose on potentially somewhere where I'm going to work, that meant that someone was trying to send a message, and that message was very violent. If anyone knows what a noose means, especially to Black people, it cuts through a lot of layers, and it hit very deep. The good thing I can tell you is, with respect to the response from my company, is the first thing they did is they listened. There are not many of us in this industry, so when something happens like this, I advise everyone else listening, all industry leaders, please listen to your employees. Listen to the people who this is happening to. And I give Elliston a lot of credit for doing that. Advancing a solution forward is going to be a lot more complicated, and it's going to take a lot of work. But in terms of the emotions that we as Black people are feeling, I can tell you right now, there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, mistrust, and frankly, you know, this is, there were other nooses that were found and by other Black people, and they weren't initially reported because, frankly, this is something that we encounter today. So the idea that we are coming across this type of thing day in and day out, I'm glad this is being brought to the forefront, but it struck a really deep chord.
Anybody else want to speak on that? 'Cause we want to know also, what are these companies or these unions doing in response to these incidents? I was actually surprised by the response from some of the big companies, because when I was reading the strongly worded response on the news that night from the statement that was put out, and I can't remember if it was Elliston or Down, but it was one of the companies who put it out. It was really strongly worded. It would seem that things are being done in these companies to then tackle this. Can anybody speak to what is being done to continue to tackle systemic racism? Because it appears it continues to be a challenge in this industry.
I'd like to answer that question and also make note of you the nooses that were found on the site as well, Dwight.
Yes.
So basically, these are heinous crimes that were committed against the Black community, and it's very saddening at this day and age that this sort of thing is happening in such a diverse society that we live in the greatest country in the world, Canada. And on behalf of our business manager, Stephen Martin, and our elected officer of IBW Local 353, we denounce all acts of racism and harassment, especially these recent acts towards the Black community in the construction industry. And these acts are forbidden and against our principles and policies. They're hurtful, and they harm a community and hold them back. And no one should be held back in this country, regardless of race, color, gender, anything. And it's important to know that we as union leaders stand for multiculturalism, diversity, inclusion, and that we bring people of all these categories into our union and give them equal opportunity, and despite of who they are, right? And that's the purpose of a union. And where else in a union can you get people of color, race, religion, gender, and have a platform of equal policies, equal treatment in Canada? And that's beautiful. And we have to keep working on that. It's very important. Our business manager asked us to join Daniel's group in morning stand downs at some of the job sites. And we went out and spoke to all the members with our policies and reaffirmed in them what a great country we live in and how diverse we are, and that, our blood is all red. And that same blood was spilled on the ground when we were fighting for the freedom in this country by all races and genders. And we need to remember that. Canada Day and Remembrance Day are two important days we need to celebrate every day. It reaffirms who we are and who has fought for this country. And everybody should be recognized for that. We also, at the beginning of our union meetings, have an equity and harassment policy we read before every meeting to make sure everyone sitting in that meeting understands they are welcome, they're equal, and they have a say.
Is it surprising then when you hear a talk like that? Because after we ran the story of the nooses, so many people reached out to our newsroom and said, Dwight, this is not uncommon, that these things are happening and have been happening for a long time.
So, Dwight, when this happened, it really struck a chord with the leadership here at Ellis Don. And after listening to the employees, specifically to the racialized employees, Ellis Don took a three-pronged approach to address this, and it was stamping out systematic racism at Ellis Don. So first, acknowledging that there is systematic racism and what to do with it. Two, how to support the Black community. And three, how to change the industry. Under those three goals, there are a lot of initiatives that are being worked on, from whether it's communication, our recruitment practices, the messaging on our sites, partnering with Black organizations or other BIPOC organizations, and frankly, looking at things like possibly putting verbiage in our contracts and MSAs with recruiters about bringing in diverse candidates, and possibly downloading some of that onus onto our subcontractors. I mean, we're really looking at those options very, very, very seriously right now. The key is in the end, you have to expand the diversity within the company. I can guarantee you right now, if there were more people of color around, there would probably be less incidents like this, because people would be less apt to act a certain way. So part of the solution is get diversity into your company.
Well, you're segueing right into our next topic, because we do want to talk about recruitment next. And also, we're hoping that we will get some closure to some of these incidents, because we know investigations are continuing, and we are hoping to hear from law enforcement if they have figured out who's doing this and if any arrests or anything like that has been made. Let's go to recruiting practices next. And I'm going to throw some of these questions out to specifically to Rhonda, Patience, and Ivan. If somebody could start with what your company or union is doing to increase diversity, like we just talked about, what are some of the practices your organization has as it pertains to recruitment?
Hi, Dwight. Can I speak to that? This is Rhonda
Please.
Davis. When I started 20 years ago, honestly, I didn't think Daniels was diverse. But over the years, I have seen advancements. I'm very proud to say, and it's nice to see, that currently we have a diverse workforce on construction sites, as well as in the office. As an organization, we have been taking an active role in increasing diversity and recruitment. There's always room to do better, and Daniels plans to actively convene and participate in discussions to critically examine how we can do that. For starters, we are posting jobs where we are more likely to recruit diverse individuals. For example, for 14 years, we have worked with Toronto Employment and Social Services, Toronto Community Housing, and community partners in Regent Park on a local employment strategy for the revitalization. Through this program, residents in Regent Park, many of them from the Black community, have found employment throughout the GTA at Daniels, as well as with our trade contractors and consultants. I think it's important to note that a number of the Regent Park residents that have gained employment are union members today. I can honestly say that I have seen firsthand how this drastically changed lives and changed people's mindsets about themselves, giving them the confidence to see what they can accomplish. We're also working with agencies to recruit diverse candidates and having conversations around unconscious bias with hiring managers. We are asking for internal referrals from our employees, which remain a diverse set of individuals. This all gets us to the point where learning about different cultures, opening ourselves up to people of diverse backgrounds, and really getting to know each other makes for a more positive, interesting, and fun workplace. We learn that we have lots in common, and it also helps us grow and advance as individuals and as a company. Over the past 3 years, we've seen a significant increase in Black and racialized team members in our organization. We have a long way to go when it comes to recruiting Indigenous team members, and we're continuing to work on that.
Thank you, Rhonda. Could Patience or Ivan jump in now? And something else I want to touch on, hopefully, is, are you seeing a change in the percentage of Black, Indigenous, or racialized workers in these companies, in these unions, in your years in this industry? Are we seeing improvement?
If I may, so from an ACON perspective, we have been we have kind of stuck, we have made some moves to do things. We are not really assuming that everyone is equal, right? I think some of us have been talking about, oh, everyone is equal, everyone is equal. Everyone is not equal in the way that Canada is set up right now, right? We are kind of operating in an anti-Black racist system, and that's the reality. So what ACON has done is design programs to make sure that we are absolutely creating space, putting our elbows up and pushing out for women, for Indigenous folks. I don't really have to talk too much about it because ACON does have a pretty good reputation when it comes to our work with some Indigenous nations across the country. So we do have joint venture projects. One is called ACON Six Nations, one is called Enoch ACON, which is 51% owned by Indigenous communities and 49% owned by ACON. In terms of with women, we have deliberately set aside entire cohorts of training programs in partnership with LAUNA for women, only women. And I'll be honest with you, we're not there yet. we do have quite a bit of diversity at ACON, particularly in the non-union part of the company. But if you go on the website right now and you look at our board and you look at our senior executive team, that's the next goal. The next goal is to make sure that that looks a little bit different. And I've been working with my team to really make it clear that this is not about favoritism. This is not about tokenism. This is about correcting a system that has been totally disadvantaging a group of people for centuries. It's not going to happen overnight. We all know it's not going to happen overnight. We've been working in the construction industry. We've been working in Canada because construction has its particular flavor, but this exists all over. Dwight, I'm sure you can speak to it within CBC. So I think that we're doing, those of us who are Black folks within the organization, Indigenous folks within the organization, people of color, have come together and really said, listen, this is not going to work for me anymore. I need to see some growth. I need to see some diversity in management.
Thank you, Patience. Ivan, we haven't heard from you yet, sir, so
Yeah,
I'll let
okay.
you get the last word on this one.
Thank you very much. Well, in my organization, the International Union of Painters and Allied Trade, my business manager always said, you cannot reach out to the community and get members in if you sit in office. We have to go. So I have to give shout out to business manager doing a mandate for that. So we try to reach out to all these community, including women in the trade. So since I started, there wasn't much Blacks, but now I've seen a lot more Black people coming in. I can refer to 2 companies where 95% of their tapers, which are the cover coatings, drywall finishers, are Black. Another company of 75% black drywall finishers, and each company is at least between 20 to 30% Black workers. As a member of the local apprentice committee, I happened to do the graduation at the training school, and at the last graduation I went to, the graduating class of 15, there was only 2 whites in it, and all of them are working. So we're making a lot of progress. We're not there as yet, but we're heading there.
All right, thank you for that, Ivan. Okay, we talked about recruiting, but how do you keep them? So once you do get people into your organization, how do you retain them? I'm going to put this one out to Patience again, and Chris Campbell first up, actually, because we haven't heard from Chris. What is your organization doing to ensure they retain Black, Indigenous, and racialized workers then that they already have?
Okay, so what I see is this. First, you have to put it into context a little bit as to why there is good reasons for us to have retention, and there's no excuse for us to not have retention. And this is my perspective, where in January we had a construction event at our office where we had an economist comes in, and one of the points that he expressed was that in Toronto, the city of Toronto, or the GTA, has more cranes up than several major cities in North America, namely New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, all of them combined. Toronto, the city of Toronto, has more crane up than all these cities put together. Cranes are indicative of the amount of work that's happening in your city, right? So, and there is a shortage of skilled trades workers, right? The unions have expressed it, developers have expressed it, contractors has expressed it, right? It's being said over and over. If you turn on the TV, you will see several advertisements mentioning there's a shortage of workers. Come on in, right? They're more than ever. Today is more than ever the best time to start a career in the construction trade. Why? Billions of dollars are being spent on infrastructure works like building hospital, work like building transportation, the subways, the bus station, etc., sewage plants, power plants expansion, and a lot of other huge mega private sector project right downtown. You can't miss them. They're all there, right? So there's so much happening. I do acknowledge that, and we have to be honest. We have to be honest about things. I do acknowledge that in the past, construction unions did not accept Black tradespeople in their organization, and it's reality, but that's how it was decades ago, right? Today, it is possible for a carpenter or an apprentice or an individual that wants to start a career at our union to walk in that day, sign up as a member, and get registered for whatever training course that he wants to, right? So it's back then it was one way, today it's different. You know, retention. If everything is in line and there's a lot of work and the forecast is good, there is no excuse for us not to practice retention. There's no recession, right? It is not enough to spend thousands of dollars recruiting youths from Toronto's various urban communities, right? And we got to call it what it is. There are so many Black youths looking for an opportunity. It's not enough to just, you know, recruit them, throw them in the big melting pot of our different unions and just leave them there to sink or swim, right? The difference is over the past month or two that brings a lot of this to the forefront is that you know, the George Floyd incident, the Black Lives Matter marches, the nooses being found on sites, right? All of these spark, you know, interesting conversation, and it brings forward that question: what is happening? Is it just a revolving door? Is the union doing what's necessary to keep these members active, keep them trained, help them to go through their apprenticeship? Well, one of the solutions that was pointed out to me is just take a look at Toronto Community Benefits, the work that Rosemary is doing, right? They keep in touch with these youths. They folks, or the youths that are coming in, they relate to the folks from Toronto Community Benefits. Toronto Community Benefits, they keep in touch with them. They call them. They find out how are they doing. All unions do a part, but it's a little bit. They go a little bit further in communicating and taking care of their concerns, and that is one of the solutions to retention in the construction industry, Dwight.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Chris. I want to move on to advancement because I'm conscious of the time here. We are coming up to 1 o'clock. And, you know, I'm looking at my screen and I'm seeing all these people who are working in this industry and they're people of color. But I'm also hearing about advancement. Where people are in, you brought people in, but how do you continue to get them to advance to positions of power within these organizations? And how are you supporting them? And maybe I could put that to the folks maybe from Daniels and from Ellis Don.
Hi, Dwight, I can address that.
Please.
In my experience, Daniels has always been inclusive and offered advancement to all races. Historically, Daniels' approach was to give everyone the same opportunity, which I have personally experienced throughout my 20 years in the organization. However, we now also realize that there's more work to be done to create a truly inclusive workplace. I have felt the opportunity for advancement is always there. I have been able to build my skills over the years, and I've been fortunate and blessed to work with individuals who have been patient with me as I was learning about the residential industry as a junior estimator 20 years ago. Senior managers would sit with me and explain complex solutions to building details. I could always approach the senior managers with any questions, and they were always there to guide and support me. As I proved myself over the years, they would gradually increase the challenges and workload. At times, they would include me in decision-making processes, like hiring individuals for our estimating department and making decisions in terms of which contractor should be awarded a project. After many years of hard work and dedication, I became manager of the estimating department. While we do not have a Black caucus or committee, we do have a diversity, equity, and inclusion program that includes a demographic survey and both a DEI survey and forum to foster open and honest discussion around race and inclusion, as well as firm-wide education around unconscious bias and anti-racism. I personally plan on sharing my thoughts and feelings on what is working and what is not working, and providing feedback on current practices to help make this program a success.
Do you feel like you need to see more people like yourself in positions of power at your company?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you for that.
Definitely.
I'm
going to also ask maybe Patience to jump in on that question too, please.
Well, you know, I'm going to be honest.
Of
there's
course.
definitely, there's definitely, so we do have a Black caucus at ACON. We do have a number of what we call employee resource groups where people come together and kind of talk about what's happening. How does it feel like to work at ACON and be a Black person, to be a person with a disability, to be, you know, a member of the LGBTQ+. So it's a similar kind of approach that we've taken across the board, where we found that there is some underrepresentation. And we, like, after all of these, the George Floyd and the racial tensions started to arise, we were really, really honest with our CEO and with a number of the leaders of our joint ventures that we work on, and say, this is not good enough. There's no way we can continue to operate like this. You know, there are parts of this organization that are not, you know, developing us the way that they're developing other people. And we are putting together a system to make sure that that doesn't happen anymore. We can't, we can't continue to, you know, be innovative and be creative and be, what ACON really wants to be is the employer of choice. And we can't be the employer of choice in any industry if we're racist. It's impossible. Because competence doesn't know skin color, right? And we know this because I'm fire. So I think that people just need to be honest about, you know, how competence shows up, how to really measure who is good, who is overqualified. We hear overqualified a lot. Oh, you know, Patience, you're overqualified for this position. What happens if I'm overqualified? Do I get, you know, passed on, or do I get put into a separate pool? So these are some things that we're just kind of going through in terms of what does some of this racism or some of this bias and this discrimination look like in our organization and in any organization that is seeing the same kind of underrepresentation of people of color, of Black people, and of you know, people who have been historically marginalized.
Yeah, it sounds like it's difficult pushing that boulder up the hill. I see Rosemary is back. I was hoping to just give Ellis Don one last comment, and then we can finish up on advancement, if that's okay.
So I'm just gonna probably shake things up a little bit. So
there we go.
If you read my bio, I originally, when I came into construction, I didn't see myself coming into estimating. I saw myself staying in operations and having a career in operations, coming up, probably getting to become an assistant super, a super, going up, become a PM, a construction manager. And quite frankly, my choice to go into estimating was because I wasn't getting opportunities. Things worked out pretty good for me, but I can tell you right now, with respect to advancement, and I'm going to be very frank, this is, and it's, if you talk to other Black people, this is something that we teach our kids from school. You're not being judged by the same yardstick as your white counterpart. Whatever you do, you have to do twice as well to get the same recognition. I have worked my butt off to get where I am. I do not believe Ellis Don gave me this opportunity because I'm Black. I believe Ellis Don gave me this opportunity because I'm damn good at what I do. So that being said, advancement has to be given to people who deserve it. If they happen to be Black, great, but you have to give everyone a fair shot. Me meeting a glass ceiling so early in my career is not fair. And me having to change direction with my career is not fair either. I made the best of it, and I will continue to make the best of it. But this story does not end well for a lot of other Black people who meet the glass ceiling way down below at the very entry level, and they don't know what to do. I was very adamant that I know there are a lot of eyes looking at me in construction and what I've done, especially probably in such a short time, and that's great because I want to give other Black people hope. I want to give other racialized Canadians hope that, you know what, if you're damn good at what you do, you should get a shot. So this is me now throwing it back to the big organizations that are saying, yeah, you know, we want to give advancement, we want to promote that. Well, just do it. If you have a very small sect of your company that's diverse and they're chomping at the bit the same way as their white counterparts are chomping at the bit, look at them with the same lens, period.